AFR On Demand is brought to you by Breck Golf. Try Beaver Creek today, just 20 minutes from downtown Baton Rouge in the Zachary area. They've got a PGA Tour driving range, a short game practice area, 30 to 40-yard practice shots. It's a great place to chip and putt and practice if you don't have time for a full round. Book your tee time today, golf.breck.org, golf.breck.org.
After further review with Matt Moscona.
And here we go.
Live from the Raising Cane studio.
Let's ride!
Hour 2, off we go. Welcome aboard. Glad you're with us. It's AFR, presented by Decision Critical Concierge Nursing. We're here at Marucci Hitter's House on Seagan today. Muse and Paul are back in studio. Alondra's on site, and glad to have you hanging out with us here. We open the show today with our LSU spring football practice report. If you missed that, you can catch it on demand. We appreciate you for hanging out with us here. And we will get to plenty more throughout the rest of the day today. We're going to head over to College Station in hour number 3. Ryan Brawninger will be here. We'll get you caught up on Texas A&M as LSU and the Aggies are set to open up their 3-game series tomorrow out at Alec Box Stadium. 1 week from today is the first round of the NFL draft. And a self-admitted draft nerd, talk about it every year. If you've listened to or watched the show for any length of time, you know that. I'm the guy that'll have my draft guide, marker, highlighter, pen in hand, watching the entire 3-day spectacle that is the draft. I love the draft because you build your roster and you build championship contenders through the draft, not through free agency. You have to evaluate and hit in the draft because that's how you build affordable starting talent with the current collective bargaining agreement with the rookie salary cap. Is different whenever we saw guys like Sam Bradford getting $50 million guaranteed. Obviously, contracts have gone outsized, but at the time, that can cripple you if you don't hit on that draft pick. Now, with rookie contracts capped in the CBA since 2011, you can have something happen like what happened with the Saints in 2017, when guys like Alvin Kamara and Trey Hendrickson are third-round picks who become all-pro caliber players for you on rookie third-round deals. So we saw it with New Orleans here a season ago. I think the jury's still out as to just how good those players are. I think there's certainly the thought that some of those guys played out of necessity because you're a bad team. And just because you play a lot doesn't necessarily mean that you're a great player. I give the example all the time of Bobby Richardson. Bobby Richardson was a UDFA defensive lineman from Indiana, started for New Orleans as a rookie, was the leading tackler among interior defensive linemen. He didn't make the team the next year. He was just in there because you didn't have anybody better. So remains to be seen, I think, of last year's draft class. Clearly, Tyler Shuck is the one that the Saints are banking on being great, and if he is, then it's kaboom for the duration of his career, which we certainly hope is the case. But this is a great opportunity a week from today for New Orleans to continue building around what they feel is their centerpiece in Tyler Shuck. And as we've discussed with so many draft analysts, and your opinion and mine, they really have two directions they could go in round one. You're either going to go with the best defensive player at 8 and then look to address a weapon for Shuck at 42, or you're going to decide there's such immense value with one of those receivers at number 8 overall, and you're going to pull the trigger on a transcendent, difference-making receiver, the likes of which you have literally never had in the history of this organization. You've had good, really good, talented receivers. You've had all-pro receivers, Pro Bowl receivers. But you've never in the history of this organization had someone that could be in the conversation as the most dynamic game-breaking receiver in the NFL. Like Jamar Chase or what JSN was for Seattle this year, right? So you could potentially get that. And it's going to be interesting to see how the Saints board aligns. And we talk about it often, but remember, as you there are 32 picks in round one, but there may not be 32 players in a draft who have a first-round grade. So a great example of that is, so Field Yates over at ESPN today has his big board. So he lists the top 150 players in the draft. This is just one man's opinion, but for example, he's got Mendoza 1, Jeremiah Love 2. This isn't a mock draft, by the way. He's just ranking the players. This is a player ranking. David Bailey 3, Arvell Reese 4, Sonny Styles 5, Caleb Downs 6, Carnell Tate 7. By the way, that's 4 straight Ohio State players right there. Francis Mauigoa from Miami 8, Jordan Tyson 9, Mansour Delane 10. Monroe Freeling, the offensive tackle from Georgia, 11. Spencer Fano from Utah, 12. Ruben Bain from Miami, 13. So here's a good, for instance, right? We've seen now Ruben Bain mocked to the Saints at 8 by a lot of people. Well, Field Yates has Ruben Bain as the 13th best player in the draft. So this is the type of decision that if you're New Orleans, you may have to make. What if Carnell Tate and Ruben Bain are both available? Well, you're picking 8. Field Yates has Tate as the 7th best player and Bain as the 13th best player. So if you're picking 8, do you take a guy that's the 7th best player, so you're getting value there, or do you reach for a guy that's the 13th best player? Now, that's Field Yates' board, but so we don't know what the Saints' board looks like. But that's going to be an interesting thing to see based on what options are available. Now, I've told you I can be good with either way that New Orleans goes about doing this. If they feel like Carnell Tate, for example, is the best receiver in the draft, they got him as like a top 5 player in the draft, and they take him at 8, I'm pumped. If they go edge rusher or cornerback at 8 and get a big-bodied receiver, maybe Omar Cooper or something like that at 42, I'm just as pumped. But I think those are the two divergent paths that are going to reveal themselves a week from today in round 1 of the NFL draft. For what it's worth, Carnell Tate, again, who Field Yates has as the 7th best player in the draft, Carnell Tate was a guest on the Rich Eisen show, and he was asked what teams that he visited in person.
I believe I visited 5. I have 2 more. So I started my journey with Cleveland. Then I went down to Kansas City, and then I went to Baltimore, then I went to the Titans, and then I went to the Saints, then I got the Commanders and Giants left.
So, been to 5, 2 more to go. Remember, the Commanders pick 1 spot ahead of New Orleans at 7. And you better believe they're going to be in the conversation for a game-breaking wide receiver to help Jaden Daniels. So, Tate could be the pick 1 spot ahead of New Orleans. So they may have a decision to make, New Orleans. Do you want to get aggressive and jump ahead of the Commanders to make sure you get the guy you want if they really want that guy, if they want Tate? Or are you patient and you let the draft come to you, which Mickey Loomis seldom has been? We know that their approach is get aggressive, go up and get the guy you want. And maybe in a draft where it feels like there's limited, the top end is not as deep, maybe you get aggressive to go get one of those players if you really have that feeling for a player like Tate, if that's the case. Now, remember, Carnell Tate is an Ohio State receiver, so is Chris Olave. Rich Eisen asked Tate if he met with Olave during his visit to New Orleans.
No, I didn't see him. So as I'm going throughout the beginning of these visits, none of the players were told to report to the building yet, because it's obvious when you have a new coaching staff, the players can report earlier. So the only team that was working out was the Titans.
So they haven't met. I would assume they've probably spoken, and Olave does go back to Columbus, so I'd guess they've met as well. And we all know the Saints' affinity for Ohio State players. It would not surprise me at all if we've talked about Sonny Styles. Obviously, we've talked plenty about Tate. There's certainly the possibility Caleb Downs is on the board. So the Saints could end up with one of the elite-level defensive players in this draft at 8, and then go receiver at 42 in round 2. And there was one more from Carnell Tate in this interview with Rich Eisen where he talked about what the team that drafts him is getting.
A team will get a complete player. I can stretch the field. I can make the contested catch, and then also I'm a willing blocker, and I can run the routes to get open. So I think you get it all.
As we look at the rest of this big board, just as an illustration further, right? The way that Field Yates kind of breaks it down, he has the big board, which are the top 32 players, which would, in theory, be guys that he would have I guess in theory, first round grade on. But after the top 50, he grades out round 2 prospects. So, for example, he grades A.J. Halsey as the 76th best player in the draft, the LSU safety, but that has him with a 3rd round grade. Nuss, he's got as the 85th best player with a 3rd round grade. Remember, you're going to get into the 90s in round 3, but Elijah Surratt at number 89 is the last player with a true 3rd round grade. Then he has a classification that's like 3rd to 4th round pick. So again, it's just to illustrate, not necessarily that this is how everybody does it. It's just, and there's always going to be sort of a disparity in how where a team or an analyst or different people grade a player, but it's just very seldom that in a draft there are 32 players with a 1st round grade. The great thing about New Orleans picking 8th is pretty much everybody will have at least 8 players with a 1st round grade. So New Orleans, in theory, should be able to take a player at 8 with a 1st round grade. It's just, is that receiver you want there, or is it one of the elite defensive players? What you really want for New Orleans, and I'll say this again, you want, obviously, Fernando Mendoza is going number 1, and Jeremiah Love is going to come off the board before the Saints pick. You want as many of those offensive linemen to be selected ahead of New Orleans as possible as well. You want Maui Noah, you want Spencer Fano, you want all those offensive linemen coming off the board because the Saints are set at tackle, so they're not picking an offensive lineman. They're not going to pick a quarterback, we know, and they're clearly not going to take Jeremiah Love either with the money they just spent on Travis Etienne. So I look at it, I'm going, man, I'm just going to be like fist pumping every time quarterback, running back, offensive tackle comes off the board before 8, because what that means is an elite player that the Saints may want. There will be a larger selection of elite players the Saints may want, so they'll have a better decision to make when they finally pick 8 overall. Draft 1 week from today gets kicked off. All right, it's After Further Review. We're glad you're hanging out with us here. Always love telling you about our friends over at Arco Power Systems, ARCCO, Arco.com, ARCCO, Arco.com. We're here at Marucci Hitter's house today, and I'm on Sieg, I can see all these businesses, right? There's rooms to go across the way. There's Clegg's is literally right over there, at my 2 o'clock from where I'm sitting. And we talk about all the time when storms come, standby generator power for your home. What about for your business? Well, that's Arco. ARCCO, Industrial Generac Generator Power. So this is for your business. And everything is turnkey. Sell, service, rent, install. They can do the whole thing at Arco. ARCCO. They're actually not far from where we're sitting either. If I go up the airline, hang a left, go north on airline. Oh, they're airline in 12, a couple miles north of here. So Arco Power Systems, home bases in Baton Rouge, but man, they service companies all over the region. North to Little Rock, east to Mobile, west to San Antonio. Draw a big circle if you're in that footprint. Arco Power Systems can serve you. ARCCO, Arco.com, Arco.com, Arco.com. All right, y'all, it is After Further Review. We're glad to have you hanging out with us here. We'll knock out a quick break from Marucci Hitter's house. Thursday shows are presented by Decision Critical Concierge Nursing. Jay Johnson met with reporters here in advance of his team getting set for a weekend series with Texas A&M coming in. So we'll let you hear a little bit of what Jay had to say. We'll do that as we continue here on a Thursday edition of AFR. Stick around.
AFR.
Buying or selling, commercial or residential, think real estate, think Darren James. Remember, when you work with Darren James, what Darren has perfected is the incredible customer service experience. It's not something you hear about in real estate all the time. And, I've referenced this often, but when Americans are surveyed, generally one of the most stressful experiences that Americans refer is moving. Darren's objective is, how do I take something which is generally characterized as an unpleasant and stressful experience for people and make it something enjoyable? Well, that's how Darren has worked with his people and his processes, his systems in place to get you results and to have you have an enjoyable experience of selling your home or moving into whatever is that new phase of your life. You need to sell your home, you need Darren James. Agent225.com, agent225.com.
Think real estate, think Darren James.
After further review with Matt Moscona, presented by Decision Critical Concierge Nursing. Healthcare for your lifestyle. Learn more at decisioncriticalvr.com.
And then Trent and Seth, just do you think you might have them this week?
They could not practice yesterday.
Jay Johnson, when he met with reporters here Thursday in advance of the Texas A&M series, was asked for updates on Trent Caraway and Seth Dardar. You heard him say it there. Jay is never really forthcoming with injury news. That's certainly his prerogative, and it's sort of how he handles things. But when you hear that Dardar and Caraway weren't practicing, it kind of tells you the story not to expect them in the lineup, at least at the start of the weekend. Caraway is... This isn't a bag on Trent Caraway segment. I don't mean to say it that way. It's just a reality that he was your. It's just the disappointing part about the injury and how that sort of begotten a disappointing season for him so far. I mean, he was not that dissimilar from DJ Thomas in basketball. DJ Thomas was the crown jewel of LSU's basketball portal class a year ago when sort of they increased their roster investment to help boost Matt McMahon's opportunity in this basketball season, and Thomas ends up playing 3 SEC games for you. Now, I'm not saying that if you have DJ Thomas that you're going to be a contender, but if you have DJ Thomas, I think there's a really good chance Matt McMahon's still your coach today, because I certainly think you beat Kentucky, you probably win the home game against Mississippi State. There's a few games out there that were swing games where you lost. I'm not. This isn't a basketball segment. All that to say, not having DJ Thomas certainly hurt you. Trent Caraway was a top 10 portal transfer coming in from Oregon State. I know. LSU did not break the bank for him. He did get some money, but not a lot. It was a thing where Caraway wanted to come here to work with Jay Johnson in his draft year to try to elevate and boost his stock. And man, it hasn't manifested. As a freshman at Oregon, he hit 339 last year at Oregon State. He hit 339 last year. He hit 267, so his average dropped 100 points, but it was the 15 doubles and the double-digit homers. He had a dozen homers a season ago, and he was so good in that regional, and that sort of what gave him that boost going into the portal cycle. Well, now you're looking at a guy he started 24 games for LSU this year, but hitting just 250 in those 24 games, started the 27 games played. So 72 at-bats, hitting just 250. That's one that really hurts, man, where you've been bad. Listen, we can have a very candid conversation here. This is the worst fielding team in the SEC by fielding percentage, and they've already committed more errors at the halfway point of conference play this year than they did all of last season. That's a team that played more than 70 games going through Omaha to win the national championship. So they're bad. Like, we can objectively say this is a bad fielding team. Now, Stephen Milam is outstanding, and your outfield is outstanding defensively as well. You did play 16 games without Chris Stanfield, and you felt that effect. But you can't help but look and say, man, if you hit on Caraway at third, if you hit on Dardar at second, if you hit on York at first, you're just a fundamentally different team. And the reality is you swung and missed. To whatever degree Caraway's been limited by the injury, I don't know that. Maybe we'll find that out in time. But it's just an undeniable truth that those misses have horribly affected your ability to be competitive this year. One other injury that's certainly notable. I know Jay Johnson talked about this earlier today with Hester on Off the Bench, but he was asked during his media availability about Cooper Moore. Jay did say that Moore was throwing, had a full bore bullpen a day ago, which is great news. But here was the update about how Moore felt after the full bullpen session a day ago.
He felt normal after his bullpen. Some pitchers, they have what we call either first day or second day soreness. So again, today's an important day. And then obviously we'll want him to throw again today or tomorrow just to see what that looks like. leading into potential reappearance on the mound. So hopeful, but not certain yet.
You're getting to the point right now where you start to pare down your rotation. Like, the guys typically by this point in the season that you can count on. You have your starters, you have your situational relievers, you have your back of the bullpen guys, you have the guys that can give you long relief. That by this point. And then you have your up 10, down 10 guys. And then the guys that just aren't ever going to throw. Like, you've identified that at this point. There's not going to be a lot of change. Sure, you could have a situation like a year ago where Chase Shores in the second half of the season just took off and became arguably the most dominant pitcher in the country by the end of the season. Said arguably. But LSU has struggled to find guys that can give them consistent strikes and outs. If Cooper Moore can give you anything this weekend, you take it. If it is a bridge on Friday that gives you an inning to bridge to someone like Cowan or Sheeran at the end that allows you to get a win on Friday, awesome. If it's someone who gives you an inning or two in the middle of the game on Saturday, maybe you don't use him Friday, Saturday, and he's an opener for you on Sunday, get you 3 or 6 outs to hand it to whoever's next, awesome. Anybody you could take right now that can throw strikes and get outs, you want. Cooper Moore is proven to be one of those guys. So Jay said pretty consistently it would be irresponsible to let him extend at this point. I agree with him. We know that to be factual. How you handle arm care with pitchers in this day determines whether or not you continue to get these types of pitchers to your program. So they're not going to be careless with Cooper Moore, nor should they. But the really encouraging thing is that Moore threw yesterday, threw hard, like opened it up full on, not a light throwing, like opened it up in a bullpen yesterday and felt normal today. That is a major, major, major win. We remember a year ago whenever they were trying to work Gavin Guidry back in, and he would go throw, and then he would be sore the next day, and it was just a process of getting him back. So really good sign that maybe they can start to ramp Cooper Moore back up. All right, it is after further review. A few more things I want. Jay Johnson did talk about the Aggies. We'll get to that here in just a quick second. I always want to remind you about our friends over at the Williamson Eye Center. 924-2020, 924-2020. You want to see 2020, call 924-2020 for the Williamson Eye Center. Dr. Blake Williamson. They've got locations all over the greater Baton Rouge area. So we say it often, eye care, eyewear, eye surgery. Need your eye exam? Schedule at the Williamson Eye Center. Wear contacts or glasses, need to update your prescription or fill that prescription? Williamson Eye Center. Maybe you're tired of shoving contact lens in your eyes like I was. LASIK, EVO ICL, custom lens replacement. Maybe you had LASIK years ago. PRK could be a great option for you now if you're starting to see some of the deterioration effects. My cousin Steven had PRK. Hester had LASIK when he was playing at PRK with the Williamson Eye Center a couple of years ago. You want to see 2020, call 924-2020 for the Williamson Eye Center. 924-2020 or williamsoneye.com. Jay Johnson with a couple of thoughts on the Aggies coming in. First, that Texas A&M offense, which not only is the best in the SEC, it's one of the best in the country.
Well, they're really good on offense. I think they're averaging close to 10 runs a game in SEC play. Grohovac batting leadoff, hitting 360 again. Caden Sorrell, when they had the coaching change, he went in the portal. I tried everything I could to get him to LSU. He's a great player. And they have some really good freshmen, too. Like Nico Partita is really swinging the bat well right now. Wilson swinging the bat really well right now. And it's kind of pushed some of those guys down in the order last year that had to hit up in the order because those guys were hurt, with Harrison and Keel, who are good players. So, and then they got a freshman shortstop playing pretty good right now. So it's a good lineup.
Can you imagine if Caden Sorrell was on, last year's team? And this year's team? Yes, please. What about the Aggie pitching?
Yeah, no, they'll come out with strikes, and Coach Kelly was the pitching coach here in 22, and he's really good at what their strengths are, accentuating those strengths, and they throw strikes. Like I would anticipate, the ball is going to be put in play a lot. They do play pretty good defense. It's a little bit of I want to say game of chicken. That's not like the right word, but some of our struggles have been like quick outs in the middle of a tough game, and they're going to be in the zone, so we need to hit it and not up in the air weekly. So you get a mistake, you better hit it so we can create some offense, create some longer innings because guys are on base because they typically don't give it to you.
who he referenced, Coach Kelly, of course, is Jason Kelly, who was the pitching coach at LSU in Jay Johnson's first year, became the head coach at Washington. Now he's on staff at Texas A&M. Of course, he was replaced by Wes Johnson, who was pitching coach at LSU in 2023. They got the head coaching job at Georgia, so there's obviously been a lot of turnover there until Yeski has sort of stabilized things with the pitching coach. But yeah, so LSU will be sort of reunited with Jason Kelly this weekend. We'll be back in Baton Rouge, this time as the pitching coach for Texas A&M. All right, it's After Further Review. We're glad you're with us. We're here at Marucci's Hitter's House, brought to you by Decision Critical Concierge Nursing, our title sponsor of Thursday shows. By the way, I saw Blazia put out a social media post that a new service they're offering at Decision Critical, as they often say, it's not just healthcare, it's healthcare for your lifestyle. If you're someone who does injections, like if it's GLP-1s, if it's testosterone, hormone replacement therapy, if it's peptide therapy, and you don't like giving yourself injections, they now offer in-clinic injections. You can bring your medicine to the clinic, and their nurses will inject you if that's something that you're interested in. It's $15. You can get more info on their website, decision@criticalbr.com, decision@criticalbr.com. But remember, their nurses will come to you for whatever it may be. If it's hospice or in-home care after a surgery, recovery, if maybe you have a newborn and you just need to sleep at night, you need a nurse to care for your baby while you sleep. Decision Critical can do all of that, and they can customize a menu of services for you. Maybe you're caring for an elderly parent and you need in-home care while you go to work or a night out. It's Decision Critical Concierge Nursing. DecisionCriticalBR.com. DecisionCriticalBR.com. All right, y'all, it's After Further Review, halfway home here on this Thursday edition of AFR from Marucci's Hitter's House. We'll knock out a quick break and continue. Don't you move. It's Thursday's edition of AFR.
AFR.
It is 87 degrees in Baton Rouge right now. It is time, if you've not done it yet, to get your preseason AC tune-up from River City's 1 Hour Air. Just look around town. Driving down Airline Highway, driving down I-10, Highland Road, Perkins, drive all over Baton Rouge, through your neighborhood. You're going to see those big yellow vans and trucks with the giant clock on the side. You're going to see them everywhere. It's one of those things that I've told you for years would normally just be background, but once you start to pay attention to it, it just thrusts into the foreground, into your consciousness. You're going to see them all over town. They have an amazing fleet that's all over because your friends and neighbors trust River City's 1 Hour Air the same way that I do. Now, my recommendation is join their membership club, because when you join the membership club, the seasonal maintenance I tell you about all the time is complimentary. You get membership club pricing whenever you do need a service from them, and you get priority scheduling as well. It's River City's 1 Hour Air, 752-0001.
After Further Review with Matt Moscona, presented by Decision Critical Concierge Nursing. Healthcare for your lifestyle. Learn more at DecisionCriticalBR.com.
If you're keeping an eye on the LSU gymnastics team, Connor McLean hat tip to her in the regionals. If you saw it, she was on bars, injured her arm with a slip, and was very much up in the air if she was going to compete. Jay Clark, so many J's. Jay Clark said that she was going to compete. She's on the roster, and she was listed as competing in 3 events. And bars, the event that she was injured in regionals, she anchored with a 9.9125. So an awesome routine there for Connor McLean. It's LSU. If you're not familiar, there's 2 semifinal pods, and the top 2 in each advance to the national championship meet. So on Saturday, so it's Florida, Georgia, Stanford, and LSU. They're bars. LSU open at Vault. They're in bars right now. So keep an eye on it. I'm obviously not locked into it right now. I'm hosting the show, but Jay Clark's vying for the program's 2nd national championship. Oklahoma is a cut above everybody else when they're at their best, but the score that LSU recorded in regionals, which was the season high, where they went over 198.3, that score will be good enough to win the national championship. It's an oddity in this sport, in that you just have to record that score in that meet. It doesn't matter what you did throughout the year. You go into like this meet here, this national semifinal meet. If they're not one of the top 2 among the 4 in this pod, their season ends today. So if they're one of the top 2 scorers among the 4, then they'll advance and they'll compete for the national championship, which would be, of course, the second in program history. So pulling for them. We'll keep an eye on it. Again, gymnastics moves fast, and it's generally about a 2-hour meet. So by the time we move about an hour from now or thereabouts, we should know if LSU is advancing. So we'll keep you posted on it here as LSU is in the national semifinals right now. But great to see Connor McClain get out there and compete for the Tigers, be healthy to do so. I know a lot of people are asking about Will Wade and the basketball Tigers, because as of this point, you have one player on your roster, and of course, Will Wade was added to much fanfare, and there was all the conversation about the roster spend as well and what Will would have, and you're at this point now where the portal's been open for more than a week, and you've yet to add a player. So you have one player on your roster right now, Jalen Reese, who just finished his freshman season. Everyone else is in the portal or out of eligibility. So I know there's a little bit of anxiety and angst. I did make a few calls yesterday because a lot of people have been asking me about that. And just very candidly, right now, LSU baseball and spring football is just very much front and center, top of mind. And then, of course, the NFL draft as well. So I'm keeping an eye on the portal cycle, but made a few calls yesterday, and it sounds like things are going very well. And sometimes just because things haven't been announced doesn't mean that they haven't happened. Of course, things need to be formalized before they can happen. But I think they're not going to be in a rush to hurry up and sign players just because. I think they're going to take the right players that are going to allow them to compete in year one. And it sounds like there are a few players that they just are not going to be beat on price. I'll give you an example of a name to keep an eye on. This shouldn't be a surprise, but Alan Graves. So Alan Graves is a local kid. Remember his brother Marshall Graves played at LSU. His sister Amora Graves was committed to from Ponchatoula, was committed to LSU. Then Kim Mulkey came in. I think she ended up going to Auburn. But anyway, Alan went and played his freshman season this year at Santa Clara. He's the one who hit the shot against Kentucky at the end of the game. It looked like it was going to be the game winner in the NCAA tournament before Kentucky hit their miracle game winner. Well, Alan Graves was the conference freshman of the year, and he's declared for the NBA draft, where some mock drafts have him as a projected first-round pick. But he's also entered the portal, so he's left himself open with the opportunity of returning to college with the right situation. Well, there's been some people have reported this, and I've been told the same thing. It's Duke and LSU. He's either going to go to Duke and have a chance to win a national championship. He's going to come home and play for Will Wade at LSU for a year before going to the NBA, or he's going to go in the NBA draft. So he's left both avenues open for him, and I was told off the record what Duke was offering Alan Graves, and I was also told that LSU would be willing to match it. So, and it is a very healthy 7-figure number. So I think we'll see how this all plays out, but that's an example of something that like a decision. The player isn't ready to make a decision, but LSU is right there in the mix. And I just think back to the football portal cycle where when Lane Kiffin was hired, it was initially just gung-ho, talking all about portal from his introductory press conference. And then, the portal opens on January 2nd. We're all expecting this windfall, and it didn't come. Now, a big part of that, as we know, was Ole Miss beat Georgia, and so all the guys from Ole Miss that were expected to go in the portal and come to LSU, that was all delayed, and some of them ended up staying at Ole Miss. Some of them, like Trey Wallace, who's in the NFL draft now. But all that to say, it took a while because then you sort of recalibrated and you had a lot of visits, and then ultimately you had guys commit and sign, and we know that they ended up signing the number one portal class. It feels similar right now for basketball. We expect the portal was open, then boom, you're all of a sudden going to start landing guys. first you had to have your entire roster reset. And remember, Will Wade and his staff, he told us at the press conference he was going to hire a new staff first, which he's done now. And then it's sort of an evaluation process of not only the player, how much money you have to spend, and that's getting guys here for visits and courting them, because you don't have to sign guys right now. So you wait and see what options you have available, and then they'll move on and start adding to the roster there. So it's not like they're sitting on their hands doing nothing. I've been assured of that, and they have been working very hard to secure funding and commitments for roster spend for this year. I'm just willing, because we have the example of the football portal cycle that we just watched that went very similarly. New coach, tons of excitement, portal opens, fever pitch, and then it was just nothing. It was just like silence for a while. And then you had visits, and then the commitment started. Once they started, then they were rolling. And I think it's going to be similar with basketball once they get rolling. But a busy time over there at in the basketball facility. Will Wade he's very public with much fanfare with the return, and Mike dressed up like the general, and the drum line coming out, and all the Mumford & Sons song, and the fire, everything, and the fans at the press conference and all that sort of stuff. Well, there was much fanfare that day, and then it was like nobody's seen Will Wade since. It is just like he is holed up trying to build this roster and recruit guys and secure funding and do all the things doing all the things he needs to do to get this thing back. So for everyone who's asked, that's kind of the update, is that they're working. I think they kind of even maybe have some silent commits based on a few things that might need to fall their way, with decisions still to be made. And there's some big-time targets that they're still after. So patience, not easy, but probably we need to preach at this point if you're waiting for the basketball roster news. All right, it is After Further Review. We're glad you're hanging out with us here on this Thursday edition of AFR from Marucci's Hitter's House, brought to you by Rouse's, official supermarket of the New Orleans Saints. Rouse's.com, Rouse's.com. Remember, you can always download the Rouse's app. Encourage you to do this. Like, maybe this happens to us all the time. Like, Erica will usually do our grocery order during the weekend, but sometimes you forget something, and during the week you realize you need something. So, like, I might need K-cups for coffee or whatever it may be. So a really easy thing you can do is if there's something you need to get, soap or whatever, open up the Rouse's app, pick up the items, pay for it on the app. Your personal shopper will go pick out the item for you, and then you just pull into one of the designated spots. They'll bring it out to your car. So it'll save you time maybe on your way home from work today. Maybe you want to go in and pick up dinner for the whole family. They got tons of options there. The hot and boiled kiosk, crawfish every day boiled at their in-house boiling rooms, grab-and-go options, sushi. They got the hot bar with fried fish and so many different options. Just check it out at Rouse's, the official supermarket of the Saints. Rouse's.com, Rouse's.com. Rouse's, this feels like home. All right, y'all, it is After Further Review. Glad you're rolling along with us here on this Thursday edition from Marucci's Hitter's House. Tigers head to Beam. It'll be Kylie Cohen, Lexi Zeiss, Amari Drayton, Kalia Lincoln, Connor McClain, and, of course, Kalen Shio. That'll be the Beam lineup, and then they'll finish on floor. And the Tigers are one of the best in the country on floor, so they'll finish with their strongest event. So we'll keep you posted on how that goes. They're halfway home there in Fort Worth as the Tigers trying to punch their ticket to the national finals coming up this weekend. We'll knock out a quick break from Marucci's Hitter's House. You'll come by, see us here on Segan near Airline. We'll knock out a quick break and wrap up hour number 2. Muse will do Tigers and the Pros next.
AFR.
Literally across the street, right there, is Clegg's Nursery. So I got a great idea. Come hang out with us here at Marucci Hitter's House. Come shop all the great stuff over here, and then just go right across the street to Clegg's. And they got tons of just jam-packed full greenhouses. Even the one right over here on Segan, just over the summer, in the wintertime, they expanded that greenhouse, which is beautiful now. It's even bigger. But tons of beautiful blooms to plant in your flower beds, your patio pots. Add that pop of color, knockout roses, Peggy Martin roses. They got dozens of different types. So go check them out at Clegg's. But they also have everything you need to keep the unwanted pests away. If you're having weeds in your lawn, they can help knock that out. Maybe it's ant hills or wasp spray or the Aeon mosquito barrier I tell you about all the time. Be rid of mosquitoes 90 days at a time. Just go see them. Buy local, shop local. Tell them I sent you to Clegg's Nursery.
After Further Review with Matt Moscona, presented by Decision Critical Concierge Nursing. Healthcare for your lifestyle. Learn more at decisioncriticalbr.com.
You want to play baseball like the pros? You got to visit Hitter's House. It's the superstore from the official bats of Major League Baseball. Baton Rouge, Lafayette, New Orleans, and Hitter's House open to the public daily. And if you want to unlock your game, remember, memberships include 24/7 access to the cages so you can train anytime. It's awesome. You get a key card. You can pop in. They also have full pitching mounds as well. So check it out here. HittersHouse.com. HittersHouse.com. Hitter's House. Train like the pros. Muse is going to get to Tigers and the pros in just a quick second. But Muse, I'm going to one-up you on Tigers and the pros because I have a little Tigers and the pros breaking news right now. I don't know if you can play the breaking news sounder. I think you can play the breaking news sounder while I'm on remote. Maybe breaking news sounder? Yes, okay. Breaking news sounder on remote. Love that. Muse, you're going to have to add another player to your Tigers and the pros rotation because a source close to the situation tells me Cam Sanders has been called back to the show by the Pittsburgh Pirates. Let's go. It'll probably break today or tomorrow. But or Pittsburgh will announce, I guess I just broke it, but Pittsburgh will announce it today or tomorrow. But let's just say a source very close to the situation. Let me know. So fired up for the former Tiger, Cam Sanders. Cubs blew it. You could have called him up when you had the chance, you cowards. And anyway, Pittsburgh did it. And now you'll have Cam Sanders and Paul Skeens, a couple of former Tigers on the same team there with the Pirates. So congrats to Cam Sanders. He's getting called back up to the show. We're excited for him. And now with that, Muse, try to beat that, Muse. Tigers and the pros.
Tigers in the pros. They still bleed purple and gold. They're just really rich now.
Love that, man. Love hearing that for Cam. He had a great spring training, fired up, and can't wait to add him back to the mix. That's great. We've always been big Cam Sanders supporters here on After Further Review. Alex Bregman followed up a big night against the Phillies in Aaron with a 1-for-4 night. It was a single. He did come around to score. Also drew a walk there. Bat continues to heat up for Bregman as he gets a little bit deeper here into the season. For the Tampa Bay Rays, they were facing the Chicago White Sox. Jake Fraley went yard for the first time here in 2026. His only hit of the night that came off of a White Sox starter, Sean Burke, in the 6th inning of that game, contributed to a 8-3 win for the Rays. Hunter Fiducia also with a hit on Wednesday night. That one was a single for Fiducia. Today, getaway day in Chicago. Grant Taylor for the White Sox threw an inning and a third, gave up a run, walked one, and punched out 3. He's got a sub-2 ERA here early in the 2026 season. Live in action now up in Detroit. The Kansas City Royals and Tigers are in the top of the 9th. Alex Lang for Kansas City got to face his former team today, and it was a pretty good outing. Pitched an inning, shutout ball, struck out 2. Rough first outing for Lang, but ever since then, he's kind of found his groove. Obviously, good to see him back after injuries kind of derailed his season a year ago. And then the Rangers are in action against the A's right now on getaway day. Josh Smith, playing second base for Texas, is 1 out of 4 today with an RBI. He also has punched out twice. The one hit is a double, his first of the season. That's Tigers and Pros.
I think I owe you a couple of Cali highs in there as well, by the way, after Tigers and the pros. All right, it is After Further Review. We're glad to have you aboard with us here. We are brought to you by our friends over at Evamore, EVAMOR. Tell you every single day about Evamore, EVAMOR, natural artesian water and a Louisiana product. Got my bottle with me right here. Stay hydrated, especially as the weather starts to get warmer. You're spending more time outside. You don't think about it. Just grab you a 64-ounce bottle before you leave the house in the morning. Take it with you. Drink it all day. And stay hydrated with an awesome Louisiana product. Natural artesian water. It's Evamore, EVAMOR, available at great local retailers, and you buy it online at evamore.com. EVAMOR, evamore.com. All right, y'all, it is After Further Review, and we are keeping an eye on the gymnastics squad as they're over in Fort Worth. Just kind of keeping you. I know a lot of you are driving home right now and not watch. exceedingly disappointed that they competed at 3:30 today. And I actually texted Jay Clark yesterday to try to get him on the show, and he's like, yeah, we're going to be competing. I was like, my bad, man. I totally didn't know that y'all were competing at 3:30. I just stupidly assumed that it would be a primetime event. But with the two pods, they've won at 3:30, and then the nightcap. So Tigers are on their third rotation right now. They're going to have to turn it up a little bit if they want to advance. But the good news is Beam right now. And Amari Drayton, I'm waiting on her score. Apparently just had a really solid routine. And they do finish with floor, which is their best event. So great opportunity for the Tigers. And get a little work to do here with one event to go here after Beam. But they're in the middle of their Beam rotation right now. It's LSU, Florida, Georgia, and Stanford for right to go to the national final coming up this weekend. But it is after further review. Hey, we are here at Marucci Hitter's House. By the way, come by. Alondra's got our swag table set up. Absolutely. I don't care that you went to Ole Miss. Shirts, hats, all kind of swag. Come on, we got new hats too, by the way. Alondra, how many of the new hats do we have over there? We have 4. Oh, I got a break. All right, hit me. Sorry.
AFR.
I'll tell you more about the hats in a second. I got to tell you about Supper Club first. SupperClubBTR.com is where you can go for your reservation. It's Thursday. Don't go home. Start your weekend now. Go straight to Supper Club. But Moscona, I don't have a jacket. It doesn't matter, okay? Collared shirt, that is the stated dress code. So you can pop on into Supper Club. Moscona, don't have a reservation. Doesn't matter. Open seating at the bar. 14 bar stools, 7 bar tables. Tell you all the time. Did this a couple of Saturdays ago. We had an event at my son's school, St. Lillian. After the event ended, it was me, my wife, Erica, one of our friends. We weren't ready to go home. We went over to Supper Club. Didn't have a reservation. We grabbed a few bar stools, had some apps, a glass of wine. You can always pop into Supper Club. Now, you want to have the best dining experience of your life? Get your reservation. Plan that anniversary dinner, that birthday dinner, whatever it is, and graduation dinner coming up as well. Just get by Supper Club.